On this episode, we chat with lawyer Dave Lawrence about what to do if you get stopped by the police in Bangkok.
So if you've ever worried about having a late night conversation with the boys in brown, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Bangkok in 2001 to escape the horrible smoke from the Canadian summer forest fires, only to find myself breathing the horrible smoke from the Thai burning season fires.
Hey, what are you going to do, man? There's just smoke everywhere, apparently.
Can't win.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract almost 23 years ago. Fell in love with cooking at home and being treated like I was a master chef. So I never left.
That's right, man. A little effort goes a long way here, doesn't it?
Heck yeah. No, honestly, if I tell a Thai lady, a Thai woman that I like to cook, they're like, oh my God, you cook at home? By yourself?
It's so easy to get good, delicious food outside by a specialist, and you don't have to do dishes and clean up.
That's right.
I dare you one day. I want you, if a girl's over and say, like, I'll cook you food, and then cook toast. Just be like dry white toast.
They'd still probably be fairly impressed.
Oh, well.
It's just cooking at home. Cooking at home is not a Thai thing unless you're a Thai grandma or old Thai auntie. Then you're allowed to cook.
Right.
Okay, we want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads-up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we gave some updates from listeners on our previous topic of half Thai citizens doing military service, a very funny video of a woman in New York yelling at police that reminds us how freedom of expression is actually supposed to work, and some updates on passenger transport in the Gulf of Thailand. To learn how to become a patron, click the support button at the top of our website.
Man, that woman went off on those cops. Eh?
I love it.
Right, and as always, if you have a comment, a show idea, or just want to say hi, head to BangkokPodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the bottom right to leave us a voicemail that we'll play on the show. Alrighty then, so on this episode, we welcome back our senior legal correspondent, our friend Dave Lawrence, to talk to us about something that we have probably all dealt with ourselves in some aspect, or at least know someone who's dealt with it personally, and that is what you should do if you are stopped by the police while out and about in Bangkok, or oot and a boot, as we say in Canada. Now, we've probably all heard horror stories of traffic stops gone wrong, or a friend who's been caught up in a late-night piss-test bar raid, but I think it's safe to say that most people don't actually know what you're allowed to say and do, and what you should not say and do, if this unfortunate situation comes up. So I sat down with Dave to discuss this thorny issue, and hopefully learn a little bit more about the proper protocol. So here's my discussion with our buddy Dave Lawrence. All right, we are back with our senior legal consultant for the Bangkok podcast, our buddy Dave Lawrence, the owner of Peg Leg Legal. Dave, welcome back to the show, man.
Thanks very much, Greg. How's it going?
Good. I have a beer. You have a beer. Cheers.
Cheers.
Boom. We're sitting across the table from each other with beers. You can't go wrong. Now, before we get into it, this is a very interesting show because I think it covers a topic that a lot of foreigners are at least curious with. A smaller number, I think, have had direct contact with. But before we get into that, we should explain that you are not a lawyer licensed to practice in Thailand. You are licensed to practice in the States. You run a consulting business here, and you have a staff of Thai lawyers who have advised you on the topics we're going to talk about tonight. So none of this should be taken as legal advice. As always, consult your own lawyers. Did I do that right?
That's perfect.
Awesome. I should be a lawyer. What else do I need to know?
Well.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about tonight is something that happens from time to time to a lot of people, even if they have done nothing wrong, and that is what happens in Thailand if you get stopped by the police, whether you're driving, walking down the street, What happens if they stop you, pull you over, ask to see your ID, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? What are your rights, man? What happens in this case?
Yeah, I think this is a really good topic. We'll get some good answers, I think, for your audience for most areas, but some areas we may not be able to get exact guidelines. But let's try to hit some best practices and give them some practical advice to get through things. There's the beer. I guess so. Maybe we should talk about the scope of what we're going to be talking about here.
Right.
Let's not. I don't want to go too deep into heavy crimes or anything like that. This is just walking down the street in a taxi, driving through maybe a Klong Toi or some area where there's a drug infestation, as they would call it here. And what happens if you get stopped? What happens if you get pulled over? You could be on a motorbike, could be in a taxi,
right.
Could just be walking, and the gentleman in brown will stop and try to talk to you for a while.
Yeah. Has this ever happened to you?
It's happened a few times to me.
Really? Been
stopped on a motorbike, an Ekamai before. And I've also been stopped at random checkpoints if I'm out a little bit late in the evening.
Can you sum up your strategy for what you did and how you handled it?
Oh, okay. Well, I handled each of them a little bit differently, depending on the situation. Where it was just the normal checkpoint, I wasn't driving, so I just complied. I spoke English in those situations, which maybe we can talk about when it's time to do that. And then for the times when I'm stopped while walking, I get a little bit more nervous, at those times, because there's a lot of stories about drugs being planted or something like that where you can get in trouble. So I try to keep a little bit of distance.
Right. We'll talk more about that as well, yeah.
Don't let them touch you if there's no need to that. And if they try to search you, I guess we can talk more about that as well.
Sure. It's only happened once to me in 21 years living in Bangkok. It's only happened once, and I was in a taxi and I got stopped at a checkpoint. Twice. Once, the first time I was with my wife, and they asked us both to get out of the car, and they were like, "Where are you coming from?" And I said, "We're going home." And he said, "Is that your girlfriend?" This is all in very broken English, and I pointed at my wedding ring, and he said, "Oh, okay, off you go." And the second time, I was actually with a friend who had some gear on him. Some minor gear.
Yep.
And the cop stopped us. We got out, and I was like, "Oh my God, what if they find his stuff in his pocket?" And we chatted for a little bit. They checked his pockets, didn't find anything, and told us to go on our way. And I never knew what happened or where it was. I asked my buddy about it. He said, "The less you know, the better," and that's where it ended. So,
sounds pretty fortunate.
I think it's quite a common thing. I know probably half a dozen, 8, 10 people maybe who have been pulled over in their time here. And it never goes the same way twice. And a lot of times it ends in nothing, but sometimes it can go into some pretty weird and wild ways. So first of all, I mean, what are the police trying to do here? Do they have any right to pull you over if you're not acting suspicious? How do they decide on their mark? Like what's their thinking here? Do you know?
There's 2 or 3 modes of thinking they could be in. One would just be their standard law enforcement. You're looking suspicious, you may have done something. Another could be just a routine checkpoint where they're setting up, or they're on their beat today. Their idea is to look for people who have A, B, or C. And that's why anyone would be targeted, or other people would be targeted. Some just traffic stops, right?
Yeah.
Not wearing a helmet on a motorcycle or something like that. And we can't discount the fact that some may have an ulterior motive for pulling people over or for stopping people.
So what are they allowed to do then? Like what? I mean, I think we all know through the massive soft power of American media, when the cops pull you over there and they want to arrest you, they have to read you the Miranda warning. You have the right to remain silent and things like that. You have the right to a lawyer. Anything you say can blah 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 blah. What does it look like in Thailand? What's the landscape for that? Is there an equivalent to a Miranda warning? What are the police allowed to do and what are they not allowed to do?
Yeah, maybe let's talk a little bit about the U.S. Constitution and what rights that affords us, and then how well those hold up. I would say here, the United States is probably one of the maximum individual rights jurisdictions that there is, so everything will probably be slightly less protective than that. But in the U.S., we got the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendment. All right.
Okay.
4th is the right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure, which is why they can't pull you over if you're not doing anything, or you don't have to identify yourself if you're not doing anything.
Okay.
You see a lot of videos on YouTube where people are videotaping the police, exercising their rights for the police, and some of them go well and some of them don't. But
Usually the sovereign citizen people.
Yeah, sovereign citizen people, yeah. So let's make that clear right here. I don't recommend anyone trying to pull the sovereign citizen crap, for lack of a better term here.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll work out too well for anyone unless you can just baffle them with your BS. Are we allowed to say bullshit?
Yeah, we can say that. That's a minor one. I don't know how to translate sovereign citizen, but I don't expect sovereign citizen would go over too well.
I don't think so either. Then you have the Fifth Amendment, right? That's your right against self-incrimination. So where they can't force you to sign a confession against your will, they can't force you to answer questions. So you have the right, that's your right to remain silent, right? Where Miranda comes from. Then you have your right against, then you have your Sixth Amendment. Sixth Amendment is your right to have a lawyer. Okay. Among other things. Seventh Amendment is your right to a trial by jury. So maybe let's just eliminate the ones that don't apply here. Okay, there's no juries in Thailand, right? You have no right to have a jury. Everything is decided by judges here.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Fourth Amendment, that protects from unreasonable search and seizure. You don't really have as much of that here, right? If you get stopped, you have to identify yourself. Whether or not you can videotape the police is another question that I haven't found a super clear answer on, but the answer is typically yes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. If what you do is not interfering with the police and their business, then you have the right to record.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But they can tell you to turn out your pockets, or they can pat you down.
You can be searched, certainly. So as I just said, the Seventh Amendment doesn't really exist here. Fourth Amendment is a lot weaker here. Then we get to the Fifth and Sixth Amendment, right? Fifth protects you from being forced to testify against yourself, and sixth is your right to have a lawyer.
Okay, but there's no lawyers here, so it doesn't matter anyway. Sorry, no juries.
No juries, but you do have a right to have a lawyer. So that attaches usually once you've been brought to the police station, and that usually goes hand in hand. At the fifth, they'll ask you to sign a confession and bring, and they'll ask you to sign a confession without a lawyer being present, and then you will ask for your lawyer to ask for your right to contact a lawyer. Your one phone call, so to speak.
Your one phone call. So don't order pizza like they do in the Porky's or whatever movies that was. So I think a lot of people have known, I think most people have probably known someone or known someone who's known someone that this has happened to. And I don't know about you, but it seems that everyone who I hear this story from has their own little strategy, like their own little get out. Here's what I do to get out of being questioned by the cops. And this is always fun to talk about because everyone's got their own secret thing, right? So, I mean, I know a guy who got, he said he printed off a high-res logo of some government agency and printed a business card with the random name of someone and put it in his sun visor. And then if he gets pulled over, he just hands that to the cop and it looks official. So he's like, on your way, you know. People say that if you speak Thai to them, they'll let you go. Other people say that if you only speak English, they'll get bored and let you go. What is your experience with this, and what do you think a solid, legal, respectful strategy is?
Well, some of the few that I've heard, the business card one I've heard works actually pretty well.
Really?
Usually, if it's a real business card, that's probably a better idea. So it's your get out of jail free card, right? So that one seems to work reasonably well from what I've seen. Yeah, the question about whether to speak Thai or whether to speak English, I think that kind of would depend on on the cop that pulls you over or the cop that you're talking to. If they're really good at English and you're speaking English, well, you're probably going to get yourself into more trouble by talking because you always want to reduce the information that you're giving to the police whenever you have to talk to them. You can't. There's no such word as unarrest, so it's hard to talk your way out of things with the police. Other ones with if they can't speak any English at all, I think that's when the speak English only tactic works. Sometimes then they'll just call up their supervisor who may have more or less English. If they're calling their supervisor and you're sitting there and they're taking a lot more time, then I think you're getting into the strategy that you mentioned is the bore them to death or paperwork them to death,
right?
Or make them work really hard to cause you this problem when they could just let you go.
Right, like this just isn't worth my time. Just cut this guy loose and get on with my day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the police in Thailand have a really bad reputation. I guess I don't know what's deserved and what's not. Sorry, your average guy on the street, he's underpaid, overworked,
Yeah.
probably not aggressive, not like I would say a lot of American cops that you see. Probably not wanting to get into a pissing contest or getting into an argument with anyone.
Right.
He just wants to do his job and go home to his family. So that's where you'd want to, I guess, employ the non-confrontational, non-escalation, bore them, give them more work to do rather than less.
I think most, this might be an unpopular opinion, I don't know, but I think most cops in Thailand are pretty decent. I mean, when you, of course, the answer to that, the devil's advocate answer to that is, well, of course, like they're all out for bribes. Well, I mean, in Thailand, that's just part of any bureaucratic institution in Thailand. Like at some point, someone's going to ask for some speed this process along money. But as people, like you said, they're just trying to do a job and they're trying to get home to their wife. And I think that it's just as long as we always remember to remain respectful, polite, patient. I don't generally think you have anything to worry about. Now, the times when I have heard people get into trouble, it's usually when I was like, oh, I can't believe I got into this crazy trouble. Well, what were you doing? Well, I was high and I came out of the Nana Plaza and I was drunk and I just got out of a fight or something like that. There was more often than not, there seems to be like, well, yeah, of course the police are going to be more aggressive than normal. But if, like I said, if I don't know, this might be a drastic overstatement, but I think generally speaking, if you're not doing anything wrong or crazy, then you probably have very little to worry about.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're kind of going to limit the scope. We're not trying to get you out of, if you've done something wrong, chances are you're going to get busted if you get stopped by the police, right? If you're in the process of doing something wrong. If you haven't done anything wrong, then you don't deserve to get anything done to you. So that's kind of what we're more talking about here.
Right. So when the police pull you over, they don't have to read you anything. They don't have to let you do anything. What happens if I just say, I'm not going to say anything, I want a lawyer?
So yeah, you can certainly try that. I've never seen it tried. I haven't tried it. I think they're still going to search you if they have a reason to, if they believe they have a reason to, maybe a subjective reason from their perspective to do it. And if they want you to do something and you're being totally non-compliant, like any place, you'll do it, right? Because you will comply. Because they have that ability to make you comply like most other police.
Well, you're automatically on the back foot too, because as a foreigner here, you don't know how this stuff works. There's a language barrier. There's the perception of authority. So I think they know that the balance of power is in their favor. Now what about something like piss tests? Can they do on the spot drug testing? This happened to a few friends of mine over the years, and sometimes right on the street, they give you a cup and say pee right here, so where I can see you, and it's extremely humiliating and embarrassing. What's the deal there?
Well, I wasn't able to find anything really great on what that deal is, right? If we're talking similar to a checkpoint where they're just testing everybody who walks by, in most situations, they're allowed to check everyone if they're not selectively picking out people. But this has happened to a lot of my friends too, and they've asked me the same question. I've never been able to find anything on writing on it. I don't know if it's ever made it to the Thai Supreme Court or not.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, I also think it's fair to say that the police have quite a bit of latitude with how they react to a situation. So I think if you become belligerent or even aggressive, then they can probably react with what would be described by many Westerners as probably excessive force. And I think that they could probably get away with that. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But I think what you said earlier about keeping some distance between them, I also have a friend who's recommended that in the past. Never let them pat you down. Never let them touch you. Just back up and put your hands up and say, tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do it, but don't touch me. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever possible, you should keep your distance. If you let someone search you, then the chances that they could put something in your pocket that doesn't belong to you is one thing. And if they pull out something that's in your pocket that's not yours, of course, don't touch it. Don't put your own fingerprint on it or anything like that. That's just standard, I would say, global advice. But you raise a good point, because I think what sets Thailand apart from the U.S., and people will probably not totally agree with this, is that your ability to hold a U.S. cop accountable for misconduct is a lot higher.
Right.
You can sue the city. You can sue the city, sue the police station, sue the police officer himself. So your level to achieve that accountability is a deterrent to police misconduct. Whereas here, I think their lack of misconduct is just in their general nature. They're not trying to engage in misconduct.
Yeah, right.
So, I would say, look, keep your distance as long as you can. But if they're going to put hands on you, they're going to put hands on you. And in that case, you don't want to resist. You don't want to struggle. It's better to end up in the police station than it is to end up in the hospital. Would be my particular point of view. And they do have the right to forcibly detain you if that's what they feel they need to do.
Really? Okay. So there's not much you can do. I guess any cop is like that too, right? In America, they can do the same thing. Right. You know, I'm reminded of, this is kind of a non sequitur, but I'm reminded of a story about one of these sort of Greenpeace activists who was in, I think it was Romania. I heard this story many years ago. And they had chained themselves to a giant tree that was being cut down. And they wouldn't move. And of course, all the chainsaws stopped and the tractors stopped. And after a few hours, some little sort of lonely guy walks out and he says, hello. And the guy goes, hello, I'm not moving. And he goes, that's okay. And he took out a drill and he drilled a hole in the tree. And he put a stick of dynamite in the tree. And he said, I'm going to light this in a few minutes. You can be here or you can not be here. And there was called this uproar. And the takeaway was, this is not America. Things don't work the same as they do back home. So take it or leave it. But so let's recap briefly then. So you get pulled over, remain polite, remain calm. You can film them you can try to film them if you like. They might ask you to put it away as long as it's not interfering with what they're doing, it should be okay. Maybe if this happens to any of our listeners, write in and let us know how that went.
This is not legal advice.
This is not legal advice. Generally tell them not to touch you, but if they insist on it, or if it's a situation where you can't avoid that, just go with it. Don't resist. Don't be aggressive. And don't expect things to go the way that they would on Law and Order.
I can agree with that.
Yeah. So what happens then if you end up at the police station? Because a lot of times what happens with police is that, I guess they get people down to the police station for processing, I guess it is. And this has also happened to a few friends of mine over the years. They've ended up in a detention cell, sometimes with other people, sometimes by themselves. And thinking back, all of my friends have eventually, the situation has resolved itself. They've paid a small fine, like an official fine at the front desk with a receipt and everything like that. And the problem goes away. But what is the protocol for when that happens? What do you do if you wind up in a Thai police station? What are your options?
Well, your options are pretty narrow, but there's a lot of things you shouldn't do. Okay, so let's start there. Should not sign any confession or paper or document. Right, this is where it starts to really go off the rails for people. We had a recent case where the driver of a vehicle got pulled over for a DUI.
Okay.
So they blew positive, and so they were brought down to the station. And before they reached out to anyone, they signed a confession. So once you sign the confession, the police basically have what they need to push the case to the court, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
Okay. Now the confession that you're usually given, is it in Thai only?
It's going to be in Thai only.
Okay.
And
they wouldn't do the courtesy of giving you an English translation.
No, they don't give you an English translation. They put it to you to sign, and they will convince you. I mean, they'll convince you to sign it. They'll ask you to, they'll say, "Oh, no problem, don't worry, it's fine. This is just a paperwork." Just like a lot of you see in the police shows, right, where they trick the defendant into signing something. So that's, the police station is two things. One, it's where you have your biggest chance of ruining your legal case. So practically you may be okay, but you ruin your legal case by signing a confession. Not that you can't walk. It's possible to walk those back in some situations, or they have the discretion not to press charges in some situation. Another thing is that's your real first opportunity to get someone else involved. That's where you get the proverbial one phone call.
Right.
All right. So you can call a lot of people call their significant other. Few people, if they know a lawyer, will call the lawyer. But whoever you call, you should tell them to get a lawyer down there, I would say would be my strong recommendation.
Okay. So you need representation down there working on your behalf.
Correct.
Right. So I got your number in my phone and speed dial just as a backup.
I don't know if you want me down there, but I can send, I can send somebody.
What are you calling me? I'm not licensed to be a lawyer. Let me go back to bed, you idiot. Right. Okay. So this is when like if you sign something, it's basically game over, right? Because who knows what they put in front of you.
Yeah, you don't know what you're signing. You don't know what they're going to do with it. 99 times out of 100, it's going to be a confession, and then they can just take that and use that with the court. So you brought up the Mirandizing, right? You have the right to remain silent.
Yeah.
That I've never seen that here, and I've never heard that that's a requirement here.
Man, it's amazing how nuanced this thing is, and how many nodes there are for this to just take a hard right into, oh, now I'm screwed territory. Because and a lot of it has to do with you just don't know what they're saying or what the piece of paper says. And if they say something like, just sign this and everything will be okay. But
that's exactly what they say.
Yeah. Right?
Just sign this and you can go.
Oh.
But you sign it and then you can't.
Can I go forever?
You can't go.
No, you can't. You have to come back.
So yeah, it can go off the rails pretty easily. The other thing with the confession is you don't know what crime you're confessing to. It may not be anything even related to what they stopped you for in the first place. Right. Not that any particular officer would do that, but we've all heard stories in the press of people getting blamed for things they didn't do.
Sure. And then at the bottom, it could say also you sign over ownership of your house and any properties that you may own.
That may not hold up.
Probably not, but you never just don't sign it. You never know. I told you a story briefly before we started recording about a friend of mine who did get caught up in something like this. He got caught up in a drug bust at a bar, and he was not taking drugs. But they made him do a piss test, and it came back positive for, I think it was meth or PCP or some hardcore drug like that. And my friend was a pothead, but he never did hard drugs. And he did end up at the police station, and he was there for 4 or 5 hours. And he had the test that they gave him for some reason, like the results in the box it came in. And after 3 or 4 hours in the police station, he noticed on the side of it that it had expired a year previously. And he called the cop over and he said, hey, look, he goes, this is expired. This test is expired. And the cop said, oh, okay, you can go. Thanks. Bye. And that was the end of that. And, if this was the States, there'd probably be all kinds of lawsuits stemming from this and all kinds of stuff. But my friend was just so happy to be rid of the whole thing. He just went home and forgot all about it. So there's a lot of extenuating circumstances. But if you do get caught up into something like this, a lot of times here, if our listeners don't know, sometimes the police will just bust into a club or something like that, looking for drug use or underage drinking or something like that. And it's very easy to be caught up, guilt by association. Are they allowed to do that in the States, in Western countries? Just bust into a place and test everyone there?
I haven't heard of any real instances of that.
I don't think I've ever heard of it either.
If it's some sort of gambling den or a illegal place, then I think that would be, they'd have the probable cause, I guess. Yeah. To go in, but just not a random club.
A random club, yeah. That seems weird.
I don't think, unless they've got some sort of informant or someone who's witnessed or got evidence of some crime going on there.
Right. But either way, it's possible here to get caught up in that, and you want to know what's going to happen, because sometimes there's some pretty bad people, and you may or may not be involved or have anything to do with it. So I guess then the overall strategy when you're dealing with these things is to safely and legally adjudicate yourself. Is that the right word? From the situation? No, that's not right. Get yourself out of it as quickly as you can.
Make it stop.
Yes. Right? But not by signing a piece of paper that you can't read.
No, get it out. Yeah, try to bring everything to a close as soon as possible, because the further down the line you walk with the police and interacting with them, the more chances are something's going to go wrong.
Right. Okay. So, for instance, if you get a call from someone, hey, Pegleg, last night I got arrested. I entered the police station. I signed a piece of paper. What do you do? What is your role in this, or your staff's role?
Yeah, so then I call up one of our litigators and send them down to the police station to talk to the police, see what's going on, get a copy of all the documentation. Usually, if it's not a serious thing, they'll let the guy go home. Sometimes they'll be in the jail. Another thing, if you actually get put into the jail, then the police are required to inform your embassy. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So upon any arrest of any, I believe this is Geneva Convention. Upon the arrest of any citizen in the country, they have to notify the embassy of that country. But from what I've heard of every single embassy here, don't expect too much from them, right? Their job is only to make sure that the local rules and laws are applying to you, and you're being treated fairly in that sense. Not I'm an American, you got to get me out of here. And
do you know who I am?
Lawyers, guns, and money. No, I don't think they're not sending in the Marines.
So I shouldn't expect the Canadian expat emergency service vehicle to screech up outside the police station.
No Mounties.
Right. Some Mounties get out. Let him go, eh? They'll probably just say, thank you, noted, and end the call right there. Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And so they may send somebody down if you get put in Klong Prem or something like that.
Like the actual prison.
Yeah. But anyway, getting back onto the topic. So what we do then, we get the lawyer down there to talk to the police, and see what's going on, see what you've signed, get copies of all documentation, and then see what kind of case it is. Some kind of cases, they are going to, if there's a victim involved, you can compromise the case with the victim, pay a settlement to the victim, and then you can go. Other cases, they're compelled to bring to the court. And those two cases have actually pretty drastic different consequences, right?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we don't want to get into that. That's getting into the weeds. It's very subjective, so we don't want to speculate on it.
Yeah, a little bit further down the road, maybe if we could do it at a later podcast or something like that, if we want to go into the civil and criminal procedure.
Whew. I got to get Ed here for that because he is the actual lawyer.
And I mean, that would be the one that your audience wants to listen to when they go to sleep. Their chance sleep.
Section 4, subparagraph 3.3. So the funny thing about all this stuff that we've just talked about is that what Dave has done here is, before he came down, he asked ChatGPT, the AI program that's making all the waves, what would you
I got
here?
the prompt. I put the prompt right in there. You can read that out.
It said, what are an individual's rights when being stopped by the police in Thailand? And it spit out a pretty comprehensive looking document, but you did go ahead and check it against the actual laws and what your staff told you. So what can you say about what ChatGPT gave you, which is sort of a proxy for the information that you can find online?
Well, maybe it'd be a good wrap up.
Okay.
So it says, so again, the prompt, so the ChatGPT says, in Thailand, individuals have certain rights when being stopped by the police. These include, 1, the right to remain silent. Pretty consistent with what we've talked about. Uh-huh. The right to know the reason for the stop. Okay, we didn't get into that, but that's what ChatGPT says. 3, the right to request identification. So they say you have the right to request the identification of the police officer.
This is actually something that I think is important that we talk about, because a lot of times there's a undercover cop or an off-duty cop or something like that, and there are many times when people who pose as cops, they're scammer gangs or something like that. So I don't think it's outside of, I don't think it's improper to say, show me your ID.
Yeah.
And of course, they could give me their house registration. I'd be like, yeah, that sounds good to me, officer. That's a different story, but I don't think you're out of bounds to ask for ID.
No, I think that's a great tip. Thank you, ChatGPT. 4th, they say the right to legal representation. If you are arrested or detained, as we talked about, you have the right to contact a lawyer or legal representation. ChatGPT, doing pretty good so far. Mm-hmm. The right to refuse a search. This is where we may differ with what I've heard and read from everything and from my lawyers. But it says you have the right to refuse a search of your person, belongings, or vehicle unless the police have a search warrant or reasonable suspicion.
That sounds like it's pretty easy to justify.
Reasonable suspicion.
What does that mean?
Yes. So this is language that's pulled straight out of U.S. law, which is a reasonable, articulable suspicion of a crime that having taken place or taking place is what the U.S. police need. So I don't know if I'm going to buy what ChatGPT is saying there.
Fair enough.
Or I'll take your interpretation, which is a reasonable suspicion in the U.S. may be very different from a reasonable suspicion here.
Right.
Like he looks funny.
He's a dirty foreigner.
He's a dirty foreigner. That's already suspicious. Okay, and then I think they agree with what we've said here. It's important to note that while these are individual rights, it's important to exercise them in a respectful and non-confrontational way.
Right. ChatGPT is super safe, though. Ed and I have talked about this on the show before. It always summarizes any bit of advice you ask it. It always summarizes it with, as always, remember to respect local customs and always be polite.
Be nice.
Be nice. It's very Canadian.
Okay, it's always best to comply with police orders. Better to end up in the police station than the hospital, unless you feel your safety is at risk. I would say, in which case you should calmly and respectfully express your concerns as you're being beaten down with.
I resent this beating. I reject it outright.
Okay, and then the most controversial issue if you want to read the prompt or you want to read the.
Do I have the right to record a video of the police in Thailand if I am stopped? The answer says, well, it's very, very cogent. It says the laws regarding recording police officers in Thailand are not clear-cut and can vary depending on the situation, which matches what you found with your staff. In general, it is legal to record police officers in public places as long as you are not interfering with their work. However, the police in Thailand have been known, there's no quote marks around there, I added those with my own voice, to arrest people for filming them, particularly if they feel that they are being disrespected or if the video is seen as damaging to their reputation. This is another element of this which makes it interesting, is because the whole disrespect thing, that's not a thing in the States. If a police arrested you and said, I felt I was disrespected, they might be like, get the hell out of my courtroom. But that's a real thing. If they think that you're offending Thai culture or making light of Thai traditions or religion or something like that, I think that probably carries a lot more weight here than it would in the West.
Yeah, I think you're asking for a problem. In fact, in the States, there's a Supreme Court decision that says you can say "F you" to the police.
Really?
Right. It's not that's you're exercising your First Amendment right to critique law enforcement.
Critique. That's great. And then ChatGPT finishes up here by saying, basically, be nice, be polite, be calm. You may also want to consider seeking legal advice to better understand your rights and any potential consequences. For that, call Peg Leg Legal. No, it didn't add that. I added that at the end. But
so I think ChatGPT, look at it, it's pretty like ChatGPT in most things. It's pretty good, but when it gets to the nitty gritty, it can lead you a little bit astray, right?
Yeah, I would say, as with anything, I mean, if you're going to take legal advice or any advice from ChatGPT, make sure to thoroughly fact check it first, which is what you've done here with those things. But generally, it's pretty good, right?
Yeah, and I don't know much about ChatGPT, but I assume this is probably coming from English-based sources rather than Thai sources, right? Yeah. So that's also going to be a little bit odd.
Yeah, I've used ChatGPT too for some writing ideas and things like that. And some of the things that it outputs are definitely not true and based on complete false stories or rumors. So, especially when you're dealing with something like legal advice, always check with a human first before you start taking advice from our future machine overlords.
Yeah, I think it's not quite there yet. I mean, getting close. It's pretty good, as we saw, in going through the questions, but still, it's not quite where it needs to be for at least me to rely on it heavily.
That's probably a good thing, though, right? I mean, I keep seeing headlines about how lawyers are going to be the first to get the kick.
Lawyers, accountants, creatives. A lot of creatives are getting.
Dude, look hurt. Look at this wallpaper I just made for my phone today, using Midjourney. It's great.
Oh man,
it's just a bunch of cute little furry monsters, and it would have taken a human hours and hours and hours to draw that. It
looks like semi-infringing on.
It almost looks like a shot from the Muppet Show. Yeah, but anyway, point is, don't trust ChatGPT or any artificial intelligence with legal questions. Always talk to a lawyer like our friend Dave here. Dave, thanks so much for coming on, man. That was really interesting. If you find yourself in trouble with the police, always be polite. First rule of thumb, and call Peg Leg Legal if you have any follow-up questions. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Greg. Appreciate the opportunity.
Right on.
Man, I really enjoyed that, but it makes me feel a little bit guilty because I am an American lawyer. I did pass the bar in Illinois, although my license is long expired. And back in the day, I really knew exactly what American cops could or could not do. I just was really into this being very clear. They can do this, they can't do that. But man, I've just dropped the ball since being in Thailand. I have no idea what their actual legal authority is. I mean, this interview helped a lot, but it's just like I have no idea what Thai cops are allowed to do.
Yeah, and I think because, I mean, obviously we say the disclaimer at the beginning of the show. Now, Dave is not a lawyer practicing in Thailand. So, I mean, he didn't have like a super deep, long knowledge of the exact specifics. But I think like what we settled on was a lot of things in Thailand, there's a significant amount of gray area. And it's like, well, technically this is supposed to happen this way, but often it doesn't.
Right.
And,
I mean,
whether or not you want to fight it is really up to you, but I don't recommend it.
Right. In a way, so I wish I knew the details of this kind of street law. I don't know that, but I do know how the rule of law works in Thailand. So, and I talk to my students about this all the time. I feel that in Thailand, you do need to know what the law says, but then you also need to know what usually actually happens because the rule of law is not super strong. So what actually happens is not necessarily close to what the paper says.
That's actually very perceptive. Like, I need to know that they're not allowed to do this, but I also need to know what happens if I tell them or try to stop them from doing it.
That's right. There's always
and some you've got to weigh that against,
Yeah, there's always an in-practice thing. So, right. I think that the long and short of it is, if you're caught in some kind of bar raid and they want you to pee, I don't think you're going to be able to play Joe Lawyer and talk your way out of it. Either you're going to pee or they're probably going to take you into, whether they keep you overnight, I don't know. But I don't think you're going to be able to, hey, according to Section 37, subsection C.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. I mean, that usually wouldn't work in the States either, but at least there might be a chance you could legal your way out of it. But I don't think in Thailand you're going to legal your way out of it.
How do you even say subsection in Thai? I wouldn't even know. But thanks, Dave. That was really cool. Interesting topic. But for the record, I think I said it in the show. I've been pulled over twice, and both times the cops have been nothing but professional, and nothing's happened. So it doesn't always go bad.
For sure. I'm a big fan of positive Thai police stories, just because among foreigners or among expats, among re-tourists, you almost always only hear bitching about Thai cops. And it's legit, but I think we should balance it out with the positive Thai cop stories.
Yeah, I'm down with that. So thanks, Dave. Thank you very much. We'll see you again soon. All right, let's do something we call Would You Rather, where one of us picks two contrasting situations tied to Thailand to debate and choose which one we prefer. And this week, Ed, I'm going to throw something your way.
All right.
So I think we have all been, you're coming from your area of the States and me coming from Canada. And then now both of us living in Thailand. I think that during our lives, both of us have been forced to spend significant amounts of time inside due to the weather.
Sure.
So my question is this: would you rather be stranded at home during a brutal snowstorm or stranded at home during a brutal downpour?
Wow. Okay. This is an interesting question.
My thinking is that, like, you do have to go out at some point to get food or groceries.
This is actually okay. So it's not some kind of important question like I must answer this question to live my life. But it's actually a fascinating question because for me, and I think a lot of people are like this, like the rain sounds cool. For example, in the house I grew up in, we had a enclosed porch. Okay. And so when there'd be a real rainstorm, I remember as a kid, I loved to go out. So I'm on the porch, I'm not getting wet, but it's just a downpour and thunder and lightning.
Right.
There's something cool sounding about rain. But I got to say this, when I was back in the States last year, almost a year and a half ago, and there was, I was kind of in two semi-blizzards, looking outside at like a snow-swept landscape is beautiful, man. It's just beautiful. Is. I mean, if you're talking about being inside, you didn't say if you had to fight your way through snow or rain, what would you pick? That's a different question. You're talking about being stuck, man. When you look out the window at 2 feet of snow, it's beautiful, man.
Yeah, it is, but
rain sounds so cool.
It does, but the thing that comes with snow is that, at least where I'm from, like a big expanse of beautiful snow looks great, but then you open the door and you're like,
Right.
your snot freezes.
Right.
And
You
that's
got to
just-
dig your way out. I got to be
Yeah.
honest. I think I'm going to go snow, only because like the rain, it sounds really cool, but for me, where I live, I've been here almost 4 years now. I'm always worried about rain leaking in, and
Right.
and to me the rain, it's still humid and warm here in the rain, and then I just associate it with bugs or viruses, or it's just like it's
Yes,
wet.
exactly.
It's like wet and warm, which
Yeah.
just instinctively means disease or bugs or creepy
Right,
crawlies. Whereas like in the snow, nothing survives. Like the viruses are frozen, the bacteria is frozen. It's cleaner. It's like snow. The frozen environment is more clinical.
Ooh, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like if you're stuck inside in the wintertime in Canada and it's snowing and snowing and snowing and snowing, and you're like, wow, it's really snowing. Oh my God, I'm stuck at home.
It can't
Like,
get
you're-
in the house. It can't.
Yeah, exactly.
It can't hurt you. It can't hurt you.
But here, if it's raining and raining and raining and
You're
raining,
like, oh
and
my
pretty
God.
soon you're like, damn, this is starting to get serious. Like my car might be flooded. Like
Right,
I got to
right.
bring all my stuff in from outside. I can't dry my laundry.
Yeah, it's
Like,
a tough
there's
call.
some
I mean,
potential real fallout you're gonna have to deal with from rain.
Man, it's just I love sitting in the rain without getting wet. I said, this enclosed porch we had. But interesting question. Maybe next time I might ask you about what would you rather forge your way through. We'll save that for later.
Okay. Well, I think I agree with you. I'd rather be stuck in a snowstorm. It's much easier to stay safe and cozy inside in a snowstorm than it is in a brutal rainstorm.
Yeah, like a brutal rainstorm to me is scarier for some reason. I don't know.
agree. Yeah. I think your roof is going to start dripping. You're like, here we go. All right.
Well, in Thailand, it's going to happen. Like the water's
Yeah.
going to get in. I don't care where you live. It's going to happen.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, a final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, baby. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that we'll feature on the show. I dumped Twitter, and I also dumped my original instance of Mastodon, which we talked about on the bonus show. So you can now find me there at bkkgreg@poorlyrendered.com. Thanks, Scott. And we'll see you back here next week.
No doubt. Boom, baby.
So my son just finished grade 3. It's all done, wrapped up. Today was the last day.
Nice. Wait, how old is he?
8.5.
8.5.
Yeah, grade
Sweet.
3, man. He's going to be in grade 4 soon. Growing up fast.
Man, I think the key turning point is around grade 6 and 7. That's when there's like an itch or a tinkling of interest in girls. Like the first the first time in my life where like someone in the class, like they're going together. That was probably like 6th grade or something.
Yeah, I remember
It's like,
that. Yeah,
You're,
I remember.
like going together. What's going together?
I remember I was at a dance and Ben put his hands on Trisha's hips and it was just the scandal of the month.
That's right. Everyone is talking about it,
Yeah.
and everyone knows about it.
Can't wait.
So you got a couple of years, dude. You got a couple of years before that hits.
A couple years of innocence. Yeah. Actually, it was funny. I probably shouldn't say this is like bad parenting skills, but I was out with him and my friend and her daughter, who was also in his class, and she made a joke about D's nuts.
Oh, for real? D's nuts?
Yeah, she's like, D's nuts, and I was like, how do you know that? And she's like, oh, YouTube, and they talk about it.
That's advanced.
I don't think
That's
she-
some advanced shit.
Well, they know what nuts are. They always joke about kicking each other in the nuts. Oh, I got hit right in the nuts. But she was like, D's nuts. And later I was like, hey, buddy, do you know what D's nuts comes from? And he's like, no. And I was like, so I played him. I'm not sure if you know, but D's nuts comes from Dr. Dre's album, The Chronic.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's a little skit on there where some guy calls his girlfriend and says like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just gonna do D's nuts, and then he clangs up or something like that. It's like so stupid and juvenile. But
no, I didn't know the genesis. I didn't know the original source.
I'm probably stepping out of the bounds of proper parenting, but at least I'm giving him a deep cultural knowledge of where all this stuff comes from.
No, dude, anyway. This is what I do on my job. It's try to explain all these references to my students.
So every once in a while, I'll be out with him and I'll be like, "Oh man, I'm feeling D's." He's like, "What?" Like, D's nuts.
Dude, are you gonna add this to the bonus show? What are you gonna like? What?
This goes at the end of the main show.
the outtakes.
Yeah. All right. So what? D's nuts? No. Oh god. It's time for another drink. Fuck. I can't stop. The next time I greet someone in Thai, I'm not going to be able to.
Or you're gonna burst out. You're gonna burst out laughing. They're gonna be like, What are you doing?"
That's funny. All right.